We all thought we knew all about Freddie Mercury until this footage was seen. In this video, we will expose things you never knew about the main singer of the Queen group. Let's get into what you never knew and saw about Freddie Mercury. Early life and path to stardom. The son of Parsi parents Bomi and Jer Bulsara, Freddie Mercury was born Farrokh Bulsara in Stone Town, Zanzibar, on September 5, 1946. While his father was a cashier for the British Colonial Office, he spent his childhood on the island of Zanzibar in East Africa. Due to his upbringing in a multi-ethnic household, Farrokh absorbed a diverse array of musical styles and cultural traditions. His upbringing in a Zoroastrian household has influenced his outlook on life. Panchgani, India's St. Peter's School, was a British-style boarding school that Farrokh was sent to when he was 8. The moniker Freddie, which he carried throughout his life, originated here among his buddies. While a student at St. Peter's, Freddie showed an exceptional aptitude for singing and playing the piano. He founded his first band, the Hectics, with a bunch of pals from school. That's when he started to play around with his musical skills and realized how much he loved performing. As the political situation in Zanzibar grew more precarious in the early 1960s, the Bulsara family fled to England. Freddie resumed his schooling at Isleworth Polytechnic, now known as West Thames College, after they lived in Feltham, Middlesex. He continued his education in graphic design by enrolling at Ealing Art College. This was a formative time for Freddie since he fully embraced the thriving rock, blues, and progressive rock scenes in London during this time. Freddie crossed paths with Smile's main singer, Tim Staffell, while he was a student at Ealing Art College. Roger Taylor played drums, while Brian May played guitar in Smile. Freddie became fast friends with Smile's members and was a regular at their sessions, offering advice and comments that hinted at his hidden musical talent. Freddie became the main singer after Tim Staffell departed the band in 1970. Queen was born then. Freddie had picked the name for the band because of the regal and extravagant associations he felt best represented their sound. John Deacon's 1971 appointment as bassist established Queen's original lineup. The band members drew from various sources, including Brian May's complex guitar work, Roger Taylor's forceful drumming, John Deacon's melodic bass lines, and Freddie Mercury's dynamic vocal range. They were hell-bent on making music that didn't fit neatly into any genre. With its groundbreaking fusion of hard rock, progressive rock, and operatic components, Queen's self-titled 1973 debut album, Queen, garnered favorable reviews. The band's ambitious musical breadth and Freddie's theatrical flair were on full display in 1974 with the release of their second album, Queen II, which started to receive substantial attention. With the release of their third studio album, Sheer Heart Attack, that year, they achieved commercial success with the single Killer Queen, The Unseen Struggles. Freddie Mercury had a life that seemed bigger than life. He was famous for his flashy stage appearance and fantastic singing voice, but behind the public persona was a man fighting tough inner fights. Even though he was a massive star and millions loved him, Mercury had many personal problems that most people didn't know about for most of his life. Freddie Mercury's struggles with who he was and his relationships were some of the hardest things in his life. Mercury grew up in a traditional Parsi home, Farrokh Bulsara. He was taught a lot of traditional values. When his career took off, he was at odds with societal standards and his identity as an adult. One thing that caused Mercury a lot of mental turmoil was his sexuality. Mercury was bisexual, but most people didn't know about it. This was especially true in the rock music business at the time. He was in relationships with both men and women, but his feelings were so complicated that they often caused him to fight with himself and feel alone. His complicated personal life can be seen in his long-term relationship with Mary Austin, whom he called his common-law wife, and his later relationships with men, such as Jim Hutton. Being told that he had HIV/AIDS was the hardest thing that Mercury had to go through. Mercury got the terrible news in the mid-1980s, when HIV/AIDS was still a relatively new and poorly understood illness. Mercury hid his sickness from everyone because he didn't want to put himself or his family through the shame that came with having it, and because he wanted to protect their privacy. Only his closest family and friends knew what was wrong with him. This privacy hurt Mercury's feelings, especially since he kept performing and making music, even though he was sick and couldn't do much. Even though his health worsened, he kept up with his art and public image. This shows how strong he was and how much he loved his work. Freddie Mercury's inner struggles, like his struggles with identity and relationships and his brave fight against HIV/AIDS, make his legacy more moving. They show a man who was both very strong and very weak, whose personal problems were just as important as his public successes. Mercury's never-before-seen footage shows us these hidden problems, showing how complicated his life was and how strong he was when things went wrong. The 1975 publication of A Night at the Opera, Queen's fourth studio album, propelled the band to international superstardom. The album's iconic lead song, Bohemian Rhapsody, was a 6-minute epic that fused rock, opera, and ballad elements. Queen was a trailblazer in the field of music video arts, and the groundbreaking structure and complex production of the song and its legendary music video shook up the rock music scene. Notable albums released by Queen in the late 1970s and 1980s include A Day at the Races, News of the World, Jazz, The Game, and Hot Space. As a group, they gained fame for their varied sound, which fused rock, pop, funk, and disco. They became one of the most varied and vital bands in rock history, with hits including We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, Another One Bites the Dust, and Under Pressure, a collaboration with David Bowie. Legendary live performances by Queen captivated crowds worldwide with Freddie Mercury's magnetic stage presence and powerful vocals. Their 1985 Live Aid performance was a watershed moment in their career. One of the most legendary rock concert performances of all time, Queen's 20-minute set was seen by more than 1.9 billion people worldwide. The irrefutable synergy between the band members and Freddie's magnetic stage presence forever altered the course of musical history. Queen kept releasing songs and touring in the following years, solidifying their place in rock lore. The band persevered through Freddie Mercury's deteriorating health as a result of his fight with HIV/AIDS and other personal and professional obstacles. Their ingenuity and perseverance guaranteed that Queen's reputation would continue long after Freddie's tragic death in 1991. Freddie Mercury's incredible talent, ingenuity, and perseverance propelled him from a little boy in Zanzibar to a worldwide rock icon. His remarkable talent for fusing different styles of music, challenging creative norms, and captivating crowds with his spectacular stage presence has left an indelible mark that people all across the globe find inspiring and meaningful. Unseen footage, the hidden struggles. Recently found video of Freddie Mercury that had never been seen before gives a heartbreaking but inspiring look into the last years of his life, showing the huge problems he had to deal with because his health was getting worse. This rare video, which the public hasn't seen in decades, gives an honest look at Mercury's fight with AIDS, showing both how his health was getting worse and how dedicated he was to his work. One especially moving part of the previously unknown footage shows Mercury practicing. Even though he looks weak, losing weight, and tired, Mercury's drive shines through. His dedication to putting on great shows has stayed the same, which shows how hard he works and how much he loves music. Watching Mercury work hard to hit the high notes and act with vigor even though his body is giving out on him shows how professional and strong-willed he is. His interactions with band members during these practices also show how close they were and how much they respected each other. This gives a touching glimpse into the supportive environment that helped Mercury overcome his problems. This never-before-seen footage shows a big difference between Mercury's public image and private life. On stage, Mercury was the picture of flamboyance and energy. His electrifying performances and magnetic personality drew people in. When he was in public, he put on a show of happiness and strength to hide how his illness was affecting him physically and emotionally. On the other hand, the private times caught on the unseen footage tell a different story. Here, Mercury shows a weak and human side. He is in pain and tired, but he doesn't let his state define him. The video of him working non-stop in the studio and practicing with the same energy that characterized his peak years shows how different his public image was from the problems he kept hidden from everyone else. The fact that Freddie Mercury's public and private lives were so different gives his memory even more depth. The never-before-seen footage shows a legendary performer and a man with great courage and drive. His ability to show strength and joy in the face of such hardship is genuinely inspiring, and it's a moving reminder of the personal sacrifices he made to make his music famous. Impact on personal relationships. The fact that Freddie Mercury was fighting AIDS had a significant effect on his ties with friends, family, and other people he cared about. As his health got worse, the dynamics in his inner group changed a lot, showing how his illness affected the people closest to him emotionally. The fact that Mercury chose to keep his condition a secret from the public, and even from many of his friends for a long time, made people feel heavy and alone. In part, Mercury wanted to keep this secret because of the shame surrounding AIDS in the 1980s and his desire to protect his privacy and job. His long-term partner Jim Hutton, his ex-girlfriend Mary Austin, and some of his close bandmates were the only ones who knew about his illness. This small group of people became his primary source of support and carried the weight of his sickness with him. There was a lot of mental stress in these relationships because they had to support Mercury while also respecting his wishes for privacy. Mercury called Mary Austin the love of his life. She was always there for and helped him. Even though they hadn't been together romantically in years, they still had a close friendship, and she was one of the few people he trusted completely. Jim Hutton was Mercury's partner in his last years. He cared for him and was there for him during the worst times of his illness. There was a lot of love and loyalty in these relationships, but also a lot of mental stress. People close to Mercury went through unbearable pain as they watched someone they loved intensely fight a terminal sickness, often in silence. The fact that his illness was kept secret also had more prominent effects. Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon, Mercury's bandmates, were not immediately told how bad his health was. This caused a time of misunderstanding and rumors within the band, which affected how they worked together professionally. When the truth finally came out, it made their relationship even more substantial. They gathered around Mercury, giving him unwavering support and ensuring he could keep making music for as long as possible. Mercury felt alone because of how his illness affected him emotionally and because he chose to keep it a secret. Even though he was with friends and family, his secret made an unseen wall between them. He feared being judged or felt sorry for, so he kept much of his pain to himself. His illness made it harder for him to do things outside of home, which made him feel even more alone. He missed the people and places he used to enjoy being in public. Freddie Mercury's battle with AIDS had a massive impact on his relationships, causing a complicated web of love, loyalty, and mental stress. The choice to keep his illness a secret made things even more difficult for those closest to him, who had to support him while also dealing with their sadness and helplessness. This sad part of Mercury's life shows how much courage and strength he needed from him and everyone who loved and cared for him in his last years. Unseen footage, moments with loved ones. Recently found video of Freddie Mercury that had never been seen before gives an intimate look at how he interacted with his closest friends and family during his last years. It's a moving reminder of how his illness affected those around him. There are tender moments between Mercury and his partner, Jim Hutton, in this rare footage. There are also interactions with his close friends and bandmates that show how much his fight with AIDS affected them. In one of the most moving scenes, Mercury is shown with Jim Hutton, his boyfriend and primary caregiver, while he is sick. The video shows Hutton's unwavering love and support as he helps Mercury with daily jobs and makes her feel better. The closeness and care they show for each other in their exchanges show how strong their bond is. Even though Mercury's health is worsening, Hutton's presence brings comfort and company, reflecting the mental and physical challenges they face together. There are scenes with Mercury's close friends and bandmates, such as Mary Austin and the Queen members. These moments show how Mercury felt about his ties with the people closest to him, supportive and friendly. Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon, Mercury's teammates, can be seen cheering him on and doing things with him that make his life more fun daily. Their friendship is apparent from how they talk, combining professional courtesy with genuine care for their friends' well-being. With these close-up looks into Mercury's personal life, we can see how his illness has affected his relationships. The emotional toll of seeing a loved one suffer and the need to keep things secret made things difficult for those around him. However, the video also shows when everyone was happy and helped each other through hard times. Mercury's last years are shown in a way that shows how close he was to his family and friends and how much his illness affected their lives. Detailed description of Mercury's final studio sessions, the final days. The private and telling video recordings of Freddie Mercury's last studio sessions give a moving look into his last years of work. Mercury was still very dedicated to his singing, even though AIDS had done a lot of damage to his health. Mostly recorded during the sessions for Queen's albums The Miracle and Innuendo, these sessions show how he could keep making powerful music even as his health worsened. During these records, Mercury's health was getting worse. He had a hard time losing a lot of weight and staying tired, and he often looked frail. Even though his health was getting worse, his singing still had the power and clarity that made his work famous. The video shows Mercury's unwavering determination to give his all, even when it meant going through pain and tiredness to finish tracks. Even though his health worsened, he was determined to finish recording. This shows how deeply he loved his art. Support from Mercury's friends was critical during these last sessions. Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon collaborated on music and helped each other feel better. They cared about Mercury and often went out of their way to ensure he was comfortable, meeting his needs and working around his physical limits. Their friendship and desire to respect Mercury's vision were evident in the way they talked to each other and worked together during these sessions. Mercury's health kept worsening, so he stopped going out in public as often and finally stopped being famous. He spent more and more time alone in the last few days of his life, with only close family and friends by his side. Mercury decided to spend his last moments away from the public eye, so this time was marked by a strong sense of privacy. The private video from this time shows a peaceful and personal farewell, which is very different from the lively, larger-than-life persona most people knew him as. Mercury's withdrawal from the public eye and unseen footage, the last moments. As Freddie Mercury's health worsened, he increasingly stayed out of the public eye, choosing to be alone during his last days. The lively performer, who used to captivate audiences worldwide, decided to step out of the spotlight, which showed that he wanted a more private and peaceful end to his life. His health was getting worse, so he had to stay away from public events. He also decided to protect his honor and keep some semblance of normality while dealing with the growing problems of his illness. Mercury decided to tell everyone about his condition in November 1991. The news came out just one day before he died, and it was a significant moment in the fight against HIV/AIDS. The news deeply moved fans and co-workers, sending shockwaves through the music business and beyond. Mercury's willingness to talk about his illness helped fight the stigma surrounding AIDS, which led to more understanding and respect. Mercury spent the last few minutes of his life alone at home, with close family and friends around him. He stayed alone, and only a few people were allowed to visit. This ensured his last days were as quiet and private as possible. During this time, there was quiet tension, and Mercury's health worsened, but his spirit stayed strong. An unseen video from Mercury's last days gives us a rare and personal look into his last moments. The video shows peaceful and loving times in his home that are very different from the lively energy of his public acts. Mercury's quiet strength and the deep love and care of those close to him are shown in these private scenes. The very personal video shows how different his public image was from the private reality of his last days. It is a moving look at the end of a fantastic life. Thank you for joining us through Freddie Mercury's final days. If you found this journey informative, don't miss out. Click on the following video on your screen for more exclusive information and tales. Stay tuned and continue to honor this remarkable artist's legacy.